All right, so we are here with Dan Willis and Laura Eisenhower, two of the coolest people I have ever talked to. They are both very funny. They engage their audience. They talk to their fans on Facebook and YouTube. And Laura is into, I'm sorry, Laura, I'm having a brain fart. It's cosmicgaia.org.
Yes.
Yes, and what is it that you have? I was just there, but I would like you to tell anybody else who's listening, and Dan, what you've got going on your site.
Well, I do astrological readings, and basically I use it just as a tool to help people to learn about their DNA, learn about just where and how we can get activated to shift our, consciousness and what's holding us back, things connected to the Saturn moon matrix. So a lot of the stuff I talk about in my presentations, I'm able to kind of hone in on the individual when I work with their chart, and I bring into account the 13th sign that is now activating.
Right, and you're empathic, intuitive. That I believe that's what you were saying on that YouTube show. I think it was called Friday Night Live.
Yeah, I'm definitely empathic, and I feel pretty darn good about my intuition. I went to a clairvoyant institute, which was sort of not really planned. It just kind of happened. And so for about 2 years, I really developed just sort of, opening up my ability to really see energy. But I like astrology because it just grounds it more, and it just gives it more data. So I kind of, I don't know, intuitive astrology, I guess. Okay. I take it a lot further than just the planets and signs. It just kind of opens up something huge for me when I do readings. So
exactly, I love listening to. There was at least 3 different times now when you get into Tiamat and the archons and stuff. That's when I really start to go ooh, perk up with the ears. And Dan, what have you got going on these days? What is exciting you and your wife these days? You got a great house where you are off the grid, and that alone just makes you my hero.
Oh, you. Yeah, Rebecca and I, we love living off the grid in the mountains. Been doing it for about 20 years now. My site is it's not a professional site. It's just basically my online notes. After I went to Washington to testify, joining other top secret military witnesses, 20 at the National Press Club back in 2001. Being an ex-ABC newsman, I was watching what was being disclosed, about 57 different species, bases on the other side of the moon, presidents, CIA directors being denied access, that we've had 0-point energy for decades. All this was being disclosed to like 22 cameras in the back row at the largest event in the history of the National Press Club, but the controlled mainstream media did what's called a limited hangout, where they effectively sanitized it, made it sound like we want to have a congressional hearing based on the reality of UFOs. So being an ex-ABC newsman, I took a keen interest, and it wasn't until several years ago some media company out of Hollywood wanted me to write an article on media control with the UFO ET subject. Right. And so I started writing it because I wanted to try to understand what happened. I was looking at what was being disclosed. I thought it was part of a world-changing event. How could anything be different after today? So to understand this, I started to put a chronological timeline together and kind of plugged in all based on the hundreds of military intelligence witnesses and authenticated, classified leaked documents that have surfaced and events that happened from the early, from the beginning of the 20th century to present day, just from my own understanding, and I put it up online just to share with other people that are kind of, connecting all these little pieces to try to get a grasp on the large hidden picture that our system of information, our mainstream media, our education system, our entertainment industry has basically, hijacked the planet,
exactly.
Kept us technologically retarded, all these years. I spent 10 years, trying to scientists and inventors and one horror story after. Anyway, that's the long and short of it. The webmatrix.net is my online notes.
Very detailed too. You go back in and you update them from time to time as well, right?
Whenever I see something significant that plugs in, like it's interesting, the Q post talking about the Israeli Mossad, controlling the 6 corporations that control the media.
Yeah.
And, you go back to 1996 when the CIA director, William Kobe, was allegedly to expose child sex trafficking, the Israeli Mossad infiltrating into the CIA. Also, Dr. Greer was supposed to, within a week, get a zero-point energy device that was extraterrestrial derived, along with 50 million, in order to get it out to the world. The CIA director was found floating face down on a Potomac River on a boating accident after that happened.
Yeah, he suicided himself. Jeez. Okay, Laura, I was watching that video, like I said, and I believe it was Friday Night Live, and you also brought up something. You mentioned Hunger Games, and that brought my ears up again, because I bought that book when it first come out, and from chapter 1 on, I kept thinking, is this a premonition or a prediction of what's about to happen? Because it sure feels like it. And even Donald Sutherland himself, who's quieted quite often, you'll see him every once in a while on like Entertainment Tonight, but it's limited. They don't go do in-depth interviews with him because he's awake, and he was one of the first to speak to that. What do you think about that theory, Laura?
I think, that was definitely a possibility. I feel we're collapsing timelines, though, and we're really being pushed to the edge, and so much is getting exposed, and people are really getting on board, and, it just like ripples out with social media and YouTube, and as much as they try and censor, it's too much of a wave of really important energy and information that's really exposing crimes against humanity, these, different child trafficking rings, major criminal activity that, the list is so long, and also weather weapons and just some of these movements that are engineered to kind of create these possible scenarios in the future. But I don't feel that we're on that timeline, but I think, having the ability to view those kind of possibilities, we can begin to, collapse it and open our eyes even wider to see the different tactics that are being used to create even more duality and division. I just don't really feel like we're heading in that direction. And we just have a lot of like really important alignments coming. And so it's really up to us to connect to the higher octaves of these planetary bodies, because they utilize, planetary forces with dark technologies to, control us. And I think all that's breaking this year. So, or, in the next year, this new cycle that's beginning with Pluto, Capricorn conjunction and everything. So I think that those timelines are collapsing, but we have to, not ever let down our guard.
Exactly, be vigilant.
Yeah.
Dan, do you have a question to follow up?
Oh, I just totally agree with Laura on, it's the think tanks that engineer our perceptions and our consent to the things that are planned in their agendas of the yearly Bilderberg meetings and everything, that coordinate the people that are in control of the main corporations that control our perceptions for the most part. For a lot of people, of course, have turned away from New York Times and CNN and Washington Post, all these main channels that parrot the same talking points over and over again, that are going up against what is like a tidal wave of a global awakening. You can see it all over the entire social media network, like Laura was saying.
They're doing everything they possibly can to slow it down. At this point, that's all they can. Well, if you're to believe Q, and the gentleman that Kerry Cassidy was interviewing, I can't think of his name right now, all the timelines are allegedly converging, and there is only one outcome, and that's why Project Looking Glass itself isn't really a viable option for them to try to continue doing what they're doing, because all the timelines, the intuitives they use, all show all the timelines converging, and there's nothing they can do about it. Except slow us down. And it's back to like you were saying with the Israeli Mossad and stuff. I found I started getting in the most trouble with this stuff when I started talking about Israel, and that was actually to my detriment very early, because they started shutting down my largest viewers. That was like 30 to 50,000 views I'd be getting on these videos. Then they pretty much shut me down, and I'm locked at like anywhere from 50 to 1,000 if I'm lucky now.
Yeah, lots of targeting.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up. Yes, Laura, could you get into that, what you were talking about targeting?
Well, yeah, it's just the tactics to cause defeat, and to cause, when there's defeat, whether that's with the kind of information a person's trying to put out there, but also spiritual defeat, because when we start to switch on dormant strands of DNA and begin to connect into our galactic chakras, there's a lot of psychic attack. And it just, they can really monitor and target, really strong energies, being born. Children, advanced children being born, and we see vaccinations and the pharmaceutical companies and just all this manipulation to just a child's sense of identity. So targeting is, the whole human race is targeted. So but in this field, of course, getting this information out, having particular missions. I've been targeted my whole life, and I know most people in this field have been targeted. It's so weird to not feel it as much. And I know Dan lives off grid. I'm in the mountains myself and in the woods, and I feel a lot more buffered and clear. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually feeling grounded. I can actually get into my body. But at certain events, though, I feel kind of thrown. But you just get used to it. And the whole thing is it's just defeat, because, like you said, the looking glass technologies, they couldn't see anything past 2012, and everything does end up with the inevitable result of great awakening and being in an advanced frequency that is an override frequency to AI and all this dark technology and manipulation and mind control.
Well, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, they won't stop at anything, and the hope is that one will just give up, be defeated, say I quit. Whether, like I said, even on a spiritual level, people can just feel like I'm meditating, nothing's happening. Even if they've made great strides, sometimes it's like you just get shattered and thrown back to square one.
Exactly. You're describing me, and everybody's going to be sitting there just nodding their heads as they're listening to what you're saying right now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, well that's pretty much it. And you just got to get back up and just brush off the dust and just keep at it and just never give up. And that, to me, wins the war. And the war is also one within ourselves, because it's a war on consciousness. We have to be really authentic and true to ourselves and just work the energy. And we're working a lot of ancestral stuff. And it's just a lot. And it feels pretty heavy a lot of times. And sometimes it feels like there's no real progress. But I think we're doing amazing. And to be at this place in history, I don't know. I feel so good about what's in front of us. It's going to be intense, of course, but
right.
Me too, Laura. I felt like there was no hope. After I saw, CBS did an interview with me, I said, I'm not going to do this unless we say we have scientists who can prove we have, 0-point energy. They promised up and down. They said the higher executives made me cut that part out. After, many, many years, I thought, there's no hope. There's no hope. You can write letters to your congressmen. You can send letters to your media, ABC, CBS, NBC. All the. I felt they have it all wrapped up. How can this possibly transform until? I think your great-grandfather may have been responsible. Because when he lost control to the corporations back in 1955. To safeguard our republic in the future, of the constitutional republic, according to some witnesses, he set up a secret U.S. Marine Corps intelligence unit that may be what we are experiencing today as the white hats, the ones that supported, after Admiral Wilson was denied access to these unacknowledged special access programs that are controlled by the corporations. He was the one that said, if you can get your people together, go before the media, you have my permission. Here's the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for Intelligence giving the go-ahead, the Dr. Greer, to do that. It's a Anyway, going blah, 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 rambling off my thoughts. So many things connect to so many things, you get lost in it all. But
it was about, you were talking about her great-grandfather and how he had set up a secret naval intelligence unit to and possible
Marine
space
Corps
force, even, to protect the office of the presidency.
Yeah, I think that's surfacing as Q today. I think it's
Right.
using the back channel to attempt to educate, since they can't get around these 6 corporations to try to reach the public. Because while we've been fed science fiction for decades, all this stuff. I mean, the thing is the truth keeps its own best secrecy because it's so far. Like the whole thing about
So far-fetched,
Project Looking Glass, with temporal wars going on. Back in the 80s, I was working with Dr. Vogel on this camera that came from England back in the 1950s that could take pictures forwards and backwards in the time, using another aspect of the time field, which definitely proves and this was patented by the European Patent Office in Paris. I mean, you have to prove these things work. He had over 10,000 photos, and you could move forwards and backwards in time with this time spiral, and it wasn't the same technology as Project Looking Glass, but it shows that there is this fractal holographic nature of all reality that's all interconnected, and that you can attune to an aspect of it and attune to a particular time in that aspect of it.
Well, that makes perfect sense to me, too. You would think that at some point, I mean, even as far as ghosts go, there should be a proper frequency. And we should be able to hear these voices, and we should be able to, the right frequency, view the past and future, like they're saying. So, to me, I don't understand why so many people are just like, oh, it's just unbelievable. And I'm like, have you not heard of Nikola Tesla? Just Nikola Tesla, all on his own, the things he was doing 120 years ago are just mind-blowing. So when I found that out, to me, nothing's off the table now. And that some guys like myself, that can actually be really bad because it can encompass our whole lives, and it can throw us into that depression where you feel hopeless, and like there's no way you can get past the gatekeepers who own everything. If they own all the networks, how can you get on a network to tell the people what's going on, right? I mean,
well, it's really huge that that Amy Robach thing came out with, holding that information for 3 years about Epstein,
right?
And that really did spread and really helped people to see this dilemma of how the media works. But Dan, did you say that you feel that Eisenhower helped to create the Q thing and the White Hats?
Yeah, according to some of the great research work, when we went to Washington in 2001 and just before the 9/11 event, one of the future false flag events they had planned that was disclosed. What happened was it inspired, Gary McKinnon, the UK hacker, found out there was a US Navy space program going on. It also inspired and got fired, Dr. Michael Salla, who I'm a big fan of his research work at exopolitics.org, who's been doing a series. Yeah, and he's been doing a series on the Project Looking Glass. But what is happening is that when he lost control, according to Brigadier General Stephen Lovekin, who was on, Eisenhower's staff, that he had lost control of the corporations, as you and I partaked in the movie Above Majestic. My little piece that I put in there was talking about Eisenhower, of all things, how when he set up new MJ-12 operations with Allen Dulles, of all people, as the head of the operation, and then they moved all their operations over to Area 51 and S4, and then he was denied access. That whole story. Every single president, CIA director, head of intelligence, ever since that date, look what happened with Kennedy. This 10 days after he tried to get the UFO information out. He was assassinated. President Carter was denied access by George Bush Sr., the Rockefeller Initiative back in '93, where Clinton was saying, to his Sarah McClendon, there's a secret government in the government and I don't control it. And he tried to have the CIA director, James Woolsey, to gain access. He was denied access and brought Dr. Greer into a meeting and said, I know the subject's real, trying to figure out why the hell I cannot gain access. How do we disclose what we don't have access to? And then it was a '97 meeting with in the Pentagon with astronaut Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Greer, and William Miller, commander. And what happened was there was some meetings outside of Area 51 that I partaked in. One of them, the first time Bob Lazar went public, no recordings were allowed, and I videotaped the full 2 hours of questions. And he talked about Project Looking Glass in that first video. But what happened was when those meetings happened, the base, Area 51, set out a NRO, it's National Reconnaissance Office, advisory that nobody is supposed to be next to these, connect with these people in any way. And there was a long distribution list that revealed Magi Ops, Cosmic Ops, these different unacknowledged special access programs, which this document was presented to Admiral Thomas Wilson, and he looked into it, and he was denied access, and it was earlier this year that meeting was substantiated by a leaked transcript after Dr. Edgar Mitchell passed away that revealed that the Admiral was basically told to back off, not to inquire anymore, or that he would see an early retirement, he would lose rank, and that the corporations that were reverse engineering technology not of this earth basically didn't give him access. And that's why he said to Dr. Greer, this group is illegal, quote unquote, because in his legal constitutional authority, he, as a head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of Intelligence, should have access, if anybody. Anyway, that was revealed earlier this year. And so we still have the situation where we have these rogue operations that are illegal, that have super advanced technologies that, the world could really benefit from.
Mm-hmm. And, we're not going to get to see it unless we actually get some more people waking up and realizing, there are a lot of things that can be proven. So maybe they shouldn't just be dismissing so many obvious signs out of hand. It's where did I want to go to that? There was something else I wanted to discuss that Laura had mentioned on Friday Night Live. That guy's gonna love that I keep saying his show for him. And it's the ether. This is something that has always fascinated me because I was always a Final Fantasy gamer. I would play the Final Fantasy games, and every time you ran out of magic, you had to use an ether potion to re-up your magic points. So, can you explain to me, as far as what is the ether?
Well, it's like the substance of spirit. It's also considered the fifth element. So if you look at the pentagram, earth, air, fire, water, ether, and it's a very powerful purifying agent, but it's also considered to be the elemental of fire, water, and so it just takes us into a much more direct connect with spirit, with the multidimensional, and it has been manipulated or put in reversal codes for thousands of years, and it's prevented us from having circulation with our galactic heritage and even our higher self. Our true connection to source has just been totally manipulated. Our bodies have aged and we die, and we're operating under just something that's just been compromised, and it keeps that junk DNA alive because we've got frequency fences in our DNA. And so something called reversal 55 is connected to the dodecahedron platonic solid that is now spinning correctly since the sun started to move through Ophiuchus in 2010, and it's a zodiac sign that's actually ruled by the element ether. And 13 is very significant as a number connected to the mother energy and the return of balance of the masculine and feminine, and the integration of polarity that allows these scrambled fire codes to correct themselves. I hope I'm saying this in a clear enough way. But so having access to the ether allows us to recognize that spirit holds dominion over physical matter, and that we can really switch on our dormant abilities. And the Venus transits, which the Mayans understood, have, the orbit of Venus has drawn a perfect pentagram in the sky and has been the planetary body behind this correction on this Earth. And so it's very, very significant because, when we look at just these hidden, occult groups connected to the Cabal, Illuminati, or whatever, the inverted pentagram is symbolic of that ether being, in the ground, and the control mechanisms to harvest our energy has been, just how they collect this loosh to power up dark technologies, I would say. What are your thoughts, Dan, on this kind of thing?
It's totally relate to that. Because I've been studying sacred geometry ever since that ET experience I shared with you had back in 1977 that led me into all that esoteric metaphysical laboratory research I did back in the early 80s. I think
it kind of reminds me of Avatar.
Yes, go ahead.
The movie Avatar. The way when the corporation shows up and destroys their mother tree, that essentially, to me, that was like Gaia being destroyed. These people actually would plug in to connect with nature, with the plants, with the animals, and with each other. And to me, Avatar was a great illustration of what the human race was meant to be, at least to a certain extent. And everything that Laura's talking about, the changes in frequencies, the chemtrails, as we speak, both of my ears won't stop ringing. All these things to disrupt our frequencies and cut us off from source, including the vaccinations at birth, especially at birth. And the doctor will tell you, no, the baby's fine. He's just crying because he's a little scared and a little bit of the pain from the needle. No, this baby's veins are on fire because you just shot it up with 30 different vaccinations at birth.
I have to interject in there. There's another taboo subject is the medical system. My great grandfather was the president of the Homeopathic Medical Society that was going up against Rockefeller, who was trying to push the allopathic medicine in the early 1900s. And, William Tompkins, one of the very well-documented witness, said that, the Nazis basically, when they, infiltrated not only the CIA and NASA, but they also infiltrated the pharmaceutical industry, and they're in control of the highest positions today in that. And if you look back at the history of the Nuremberg trials and IG Farben and the connections with all this, and you have to wonder, it makes you wonder, especially with all the, like my mother, was told she was going to die from this cancer if I take her across the border to the Gerson nutritional therapy, where they completely cured her. I stayed with her down there, and she lived to be 91 years old. But, only radiation, surgery, and pharmaceuticals are legally allowed, and you have all these people that are getting mysteriously die that try to come out with things. We have, it just looks like, I'm not saying this is true, but I'm just saying it looks like the Nazis infiltrated in and are carrying on a eugenics program on the, when you look at the fluoride, the GMOs, and everything else. I'm just saying it appears that way.
It certainly does. It's like Hitler was the poster boy, but he was also just a puppet. And people can say what they want about Trump and everything else. I'm the guy that's in the middle. Both sides have good points, but they try to force their shitty points on everybody else. And it's like, no, why can you not just have the good thing? They try to force like their raises. There's absolutely no downtime when it comes to them getting their raises. Boom, that bill passes and their next check is in the bank a week later with that raise on it. But anybody else has to wait. And that is something that these people seem, they think they're rock stars. They've forgotten that they're civil servants, and I think we've forgotten to a large extent. Not the three of us, obviously, but a lot of people have forgotten that these people are supposed to be here working for us, not taking things for granted. Like here in Ontario, I was telling Dan about this, Laura, that it's so insanely expensive to live. Our food is about 3 times the price of yours. A 1-bedroom apartment in St. Catharines, Ontario is at least $1,100 a month, all bills paid, if you're lucky to find one like that. I've probably got the last cheap apartment in the city. They're wiping out essentially the middle class. They're stepping up the game, and I'm waiting for these white hats to come out, or Q to, Q's helping, but I think he could work maybe just a little bit faster.
Yeah. Well, with all these attacks and assaults, the saving grace is the fact that this powerful energy is coming in. People tracking the Schumann resonance and the frequency of the planet, and just this whole window of ascension is going to override all these assaults and attacks and toxicities. I just don't think that they expected us to be where we are right now. Right. If they could have clamped down the control harder around the peak of between 2010, 2012, whatever, when the ascension energies really started to flow in, they really expected to be able to clamp down on, major control. And so I'm like you, I'm on the fence. I don't get into the political as much as what sort of operations are happening behind Trump is what's important.
Exactly.
There's so much character blaming, shaming, and trying to go after every little thing. That's what obviously we're seeing with impeachments.
No
but
president is
there's way more going on in the background. It's not, this administration has done more to bring out the the purge that's needed to be shown so everybody can see the real criminal activity, and I don't think anything can stop that now. And we got to look at a much bigger picture than just these elected individuals.
Exactly. My hope just went through the ceiling when back in 2017 when I saw, what happens is the deep state when they have a situation like a false flag event. I had to go to Vietnam in combat action because of the Gulf of Tonkin false flag. Well, when 9/11 happened, they did, Patriot Act and National Defense Authorization Act, all these draconian laws, they got to a free, a free ticket to write all this stuff. Even Obama, back in the NDAA of 2013, made it legal to use disinformation against the American public.
That's right.
Even though, yeah. And where was I going with that? What inspired me, what gave me hope was in 2017, an executive order was done by Trump to block the assets of anybody doing human rights abuse or corruption, which, read anybody in the cabal isn't involved in one of the two.
Why they all hate him.
And then, changes to the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, in order to try these people and then under military law rather than civilian. And then, Guantanamo Bay being expanded, and then the tens of thousands of sealed indictments collecting, and then, Q surfacing and, kind of educating the people with little tidbits here and there. Now I have my hope went right through the ceiling. This is like a very exciting time to be alive.
Oh, it definitely is. And it's almost surreal. It's like, I know we all carry this inner tension that makes it hard to sleep sometimes. It's just hard to function in this reality. The more one's mind is blown open to what's truly going on, the ability to function as a human can sometimes go through all sorts of oh my gosh, there's so much to process. I was bedridden for a while, just processing and processing and processing, on and off throughout my life. And I know it's a lot for people because it's enough to just try and, keep a roof over our head and food in the fridge, let alone process what's really
just your normal everyday life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. So, but yeah, and what we're going through on a physical level as well, because this is a mass deprogramming, and programs exist in our bodies. It's passed down generation to generation. It's impacted, everything: DNA, consciousness, behavior patterns, health, and all this drugging of humanity. We're not able to be in the natural initiations, that life gives us to, have breakthroughs and to shed layers that don't serve us anymore. And all those initiatory experiences are stunted. And so our growth has been stunted. And so now it's all accelerating, and we're doing, massive work that has not been done for a really long time, processing things our ancestors weren't able to, speaking things that were totally shut down. And it's just like this explosion. It's really wild.
You know what? When you put it like that, it is exciting. If I can put my own personal stuff aside, I'd probably be able to see that more, and I'd be able to get out of my funk a lot faster. Actually, there was something that I wanted to bring up. Have either of you read or seen the movie Celestine Prophecy?
I read the book when it first came out a long time ago. Yeah,
that was something that grabbed me. Yeah, I think I was about 20 years old when that book came out, and I had read that, and I actually did the experiment, and I was able to see the energy between my fingers. They describe, as they're getting into these books, as they're finding the prophecies and that, they teach you a little bit about the spirituality and what you need to do. It's actually a really good guide, and they actually have a guidebook, source book for you to, like a workbook, to like you would in high school, to analyze everything that's in that book with. So you would believe that that's the, and they could go, they could shift between dimensions. That's where I was going with that. My biggest worry today, I think the thing that knocks me down the most is CERN. They can still, I don't see how they cannot be a threat, even to this current timeline, because, I mean, they are messing with antimatter, dark matter, and time travel. What do you guys think about that? I'm not too filled in on it. I've just started watching. I know I'm very, very scared of the fact that they all speak broken English and not very well. So there can't be great communication going on there.
Well, I bet Dan knows way more about this than me.
No, I'm not sure about that.
Really? CERN. Yeah. Okay. That's
I heard
something.
A lot of their projects weren't working out. I mean, it's not succeeding in the way that they had hoped. I mean, human consciousness is so powerful. We are multidimensional beings, and some of us identify way more with the multidimensions and with this human realm. Yeah. And I just, yeah, I mean, we're being pushed to the edge. I mean, these dark technologies and the things that they can do. I mean, we see just these weather weapons and what, it's happening in California. I mean, these agendas are real and they're still happening, but they are pushing us to the edge. And when enough people are awakened, that consciousness really shuts these things down, because a lot of them harvest the chi of the earth and also our life force. Exactly. Through these programmings, through the manipulations of our belief systems, our sense of identity. So as we rise, those things begin to collapse, and we are rising. That's
so true, and that's why it's so important that they gain control of the masses of the perceptions of the masses, because they know that we are a hive mind. They know that we're all connected as a collective mind, and that we are creating our experience. We are creating this reality, and that's why you see so much normalizing of psychotic kill programming going on television, being exposed to millions of people. That's why the perception matrix of our news media network is, that the average person, that's trying to live and survive on this planet, to pay the rent and the utilities, and it comes home from work and turns on the evening news and gets into alpha state and gets programmed. They count on that. They count on all these millions of minds getting programmed with a certain kind of reality. But that matrix is falling apart, due in part, thanks to, the social media networks and, shows like yours, Stephen. And, it's true. we are each creative beings, and we are each participatory in this experience that we're having. In fact, I was inspired back some time ago to write this thing called on the webmatrix.net called Imagine This, where I did a just for the exercise for people to go into their mind and imagine, like, in the future, children in a library of the future where science is fully taught in a full understanding of its true nature, and history in its true nature, and everything else. They're looking back at the challenges that mankind had by this global cabal, deep state, or whatever titles you want to give it, and how through this collective awakening, they were able to transform the situation into an incredible, beautiful civilization that they were very thankful for the people that helped usher in this. So I was doing this kind of an exercise for people to read, just because the very act of imagining and visualizing has an effect on the collective.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if our creative channels are infected by these programs, we enable or we co-create a timeline or a future that we don't want to see. And so if we give it our belief, if we think, doom, gloom, or we're screwed, or we're in a trance and we just buy into whatever programming, even the false ascension, or, some of the ways that they want to push transhumanism on people, obviously we're going to have to find a balance between the spiritual and technological. But yeah, it's really like, if we can keep our creative channels clear and just really infuse them with, the future we'd like to see, and we're authentic and sovereign. I just feel, we've jumped the timeline, and we're home free in a lot of ways, but not fully out of the woods. I mean, I don't ever consider like it to be a done deal. I feel like we just get wiser and we become senior to these lower entities. And like an immune system that gets built, it's easier to be shielded after you experience them enough. The body, learns to create an immunity and a consciousness. And so, then it gets to the point where there's no way to penetrate. And that's why the trauma, inflicting trauma on the human race throughout history has been such a strong mechanism of control. And on a more concentrated level, in these families with this, multi-generational trauma-based mind control abuse in these family lines so that they can just stand for these agendas and have an outer facade that people are only seeing, that one layer or just, and there's layer upon layer upon layer, and so much galactic history and Earth history. It's just insane. Yeah, I can't imagine just raising kids with the truth and with learning to connect with the land and work with their own abilities, and that's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, like it's overwhelming when you can actually picture it, and you're just thinking, why? Why? There doesn't have to be bad if we don't project it. So yeah, it's finding a way to gain a hold of your thoughts, especially for people like me, is very important, because that's something I worry about often, and I pray, not necessarily to one God type thing, but I picture good things happening for the people in my life, and sometimes it actually happens, and that's when you've got to step back and realize, okay, maybe I should be more positive, try to picture these things, good things happening more often than the bad things, and then maybe everything will start to turn out for the better.
Well, I definitely, turning lead into gold. I mean, that's why I say I didn't kind of expect that I'd have it as a title of, but, global alchemist. I mean, we're all in this global alchemy, turning the lead into gold, the lead of Saturn into gold, and it's major transmutation and transformation. So we got to be okay, though, with going into the dark night of the soul and facing the darkness and allowing ourselves to move through anger and depression, and just do our best, knowing that it's not going to be an ongoing thing. It's a catalyst. It's temporary, because on the flip side of it is where our wisdom lies, where our truth lies, and it's helping us. It can help us to wake up if we open our minds up enough to the downloads or greater, higher communications. Because if we don't, we just stay in the dark longer than comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's been essentially 7 years for me, so yeah, I think it's time to snap out of it.
And it's like an electrical circuit. When I was doing research, love is a key element. It's basically the structure of the matrix, and that when you have elements that are out of alignment with that, it's almost like an electrical circuit that will start to heat up and burn up, actually, if it's too far out of alignment. And we're moving into a greater alignment. Just like the gratitude and everything, you see this incredible structuring going on where you don't have that with the discordant thought. And so we're moving into a more of alignment with the matrix, which is love. And you think about the average person just trying to deal with this. They don't have time to really research history. They've been exposed to, like I have, the history in high school, and you go to the universities too, and everything's been taught to you, and science and everything. They have no idea. They don't have the time to look back and see how the Rockefeller took and rewrote what actually happened at the end of World War II to hide the Nazis escaping and infiltrating in with a plan called Weltanschauungskrieg, which means worldview warfare, which meant they wanted to come in and, with Operation Project Mockingbird with Alan Dulles controlling the media, and Project Dove with Hollywood, and the first movies that came out in 1951. 1951 also the Invention Secrecy Act, of which I spent 10 years meeting with scientists and inventors, which they put a secret system into the patent office called Sensitive Application Warning System. Anybody has a solution to get off nuclear oil or coal, they get one of these national security orders saying you cannot release it. Thousands of these have been issued to, and, a lot of inventors and things have been, murdered too, trying to bring this out. So they've kept us technologically retarded, through our education, our media, our entertainment, even people trying to come up with solutions for the world. They've kept us in this bubble of where when we start to talk about what's been hidden, it sounds so far out there, it sounds so science fiction like,
right,
that it automatically promotes a rejection of these ideas, because we've been fed this false reality for so many decades.
Yeah. Right, and it's like if all of a sudden we were told that dinosaurs exist, but we never learned about it in school, we'd have the same issue. Like, wait a second, what?
Right.
Exactly.
There's no freaking way. But because that was introduced in our early education, it's like, that's the power of conditioning. It's huge to have to relearn everything, and that's the hard part.
Well, the really hard part is how far back has history essentially been hijacked and rewritten? Now, really, how far back was it? Was it like they say the Illuminati's, that Adam Weishaupt? And there's even a thing that he may have came over here and killed the original George Washington and took his place. So it's like, what has been rewritten? What is the true history and what isn't? And at this point, I'm starting to think that almost everything we have, everything we have seen, you and I know this from the Vietnam War, from World War II, all this stuff. Everything has that other side. There's the political side, and then there's that supernatural element that is laughed at, utterly rejected by the people who are now in control of this technology.
You brought up a good point about, relating to, going back to 1776 when, Rothschild had Adam Weishaupt, basically infiltrated the Bavarian Illuminati, and they actually had plans in order to control the perceptions, through their media at that stage. So, you have Alexander Hamilton, which was the Rothschilds cut out basically to bring in the central bank in the United States. You have, and you look at all of the presidents, CIA directors, people who are the movers, shakers in the world. They're usually members of, high-level 33rd degree Freemasons, of which my grandfather was one, and my great-grandpa was the 32nd. And you have people who are skull and bones. You have people who are Knights of Malta, which, Nelson Rockefeller, who did the restructuring under Eisenhower to restructure the CIA MJ-12 operations in order to give them plausible deniability. He was a Knight of Malta. In fact, researching, I found that Eisenhower was a Knight of Malta. Are you aware of that, Laura?
And I have so much to ask you to help me understand a lot about things about Eisenhower I don't know. But do you think he had good intentions for humanity, or do you feel like he was really sucked into these dark agendas, or do you feel like he was in a power struggle with them because there was really no way to fully escape it, perhaps, or I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. He was definitely, indications was he was a good man, because look what happened when he was troubled, as General Lufkin on his staff. He was very, very troubled that, and he tried to warn the American public, only an alert, knowledgeable citizenry, beware of the misplaced powers within the industrial military complex. In other words, the corporations that were infiltrated with they had pre-war arrangements with these corporations before and after the war that came in and basically did that. And then, once he completely lost control with the denied access, where he was sending over 2 CIA agents in order to, look at what was going on at Area 51 and S4. He was basically, he threatened to go in with the First Army.
No.
And if he's doing all of that, it didn't sound like a black hat to me. It sounds like a white hat.
Oh, definitely. And he was against all the spending. He didn't want to be all kinds of military spending. He said, I don't want to spend 1 penny more than is needed for defense.
And most importantly was that he may be the one that's responsible for this whole turnaround. If he didn't set up that secret, and Dr. Michael Sella can confirm on this too, because he's, I've talked to a number of the witnesses, that this U.S. Marine Corps intelligence unit was set up to guard to safeguard our legal constitutional republic in the future, and Q may just be the seed that he put forth all the way back in 1955 that surfaced in 2017. So he may have been the one that saved the entire planet. Well,
it's amazing because I almost asked that question weird about, because I know in my heart of hearts a lot of this information, and he's been a spirit guide since day one. He pretty much put me and my husband together. All of a sudden, my husband doesn't even channel or anything. He's like, Eisenhower's trying to get my attention, saying, go get her, because I was literally falling through the cracks. I just almost didn't make it, and he got me right in the nick of time, and he's just been so close to my heart. And I guess I'm just wondering, I don't think I asked that in a way that was really coming from a true question. It was more the power struggle part of it. He had
that DNA resonance going on with him. It's, that other people don't have.
Say that again?
I said you have that DNA resonance going on with him.
Yeah, we definitely, I get all sorts of interesting information from people saying, interesting things about our connection and the future, that he was briefed about a future descendant being born. I get, these really powerful channelers just sending me like really interesting stuff. And so I take a lot of it with a grain of salt, but I really feel it, like, because I'll get like the goosebumps, or something will happen to my nervous system, and I'll get emotional or feel like I'm going to, really kind of, I don't know, because it's a lot. And I've been processing with him a lot, just beyond this physical realm, these challenges. And we're just this great team, you, me, all of us that are doing this work. I feel like we're a family, and we all have the same intention for humanity. And I just feel that just strength and power of the numbers, just growing. And it's really quite incredible. I guess I get kind of caught with a lot of the timeline stuff, time travel. We talk about rewriting history, but sometimes I feel like there's, some level of time travel manipulation. I don't really resonate with the whole German genocide thing. People are calling him a Swedish Jew, but it's like he's German, and our family background's Anabaptist. So there's so much disinformation, and I get so much of that hate mail that sometimes it just, I almost feel like, so it's really nice to just be able to talk to you, what took place, and you just have that vibration of just total truth, and that you know what you're saying, and I'm just so grateful, because it's confusing at times.
Dan's
even in
a very genuine, informed person. Yeah.
Well, it's evident by his actions, absolutely.
What's that?
I said it's evident by Eisenhower's actions.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on just like time travel and stuff like that?
It's interesting. I was friends with Andy Bisagio before he, became public. In fact, I was, Alfred Rubbert. He introduced him to me. I actually used him as my attorney for something. But before he became public, I said, Andy, get yourself. I was trying to get him to be one of the disclosure witnesses. The add-on to Dr. Byrd. Didn't want to include him. I guess it was too controversial or whatever. But what happened was I told him, get on Art Bell, get on Coast to Coast, and then I said, get all over it, get yourself very visible, then that way if something happens to you, it's going to be an undesirable, oh, look, what happened? They whacked him, maybe he had something important to say, so...
Well, I have a strong affiliation with him. We connected some dots. Actually, Alfred's the first person to interview me back in 2010. And him, Alfred, Andy, and I were doing a lot together and collaborating a lot together. And Andy was considering having me as his running mate. We actually made an announcement that I was like,
cool. Yeah.
But can you imagine? I don't think I would. I don't know. It would just be too weird to have somebody like me in the White House.
Yeah,
but,
I hate politics too.
I don't think so. I think the White House could use someone like you, honestly.
I couldn't even pass.
You could make Dan sec deaf.
Well, I couldn't even pass a citizenship test, so I'm not coming in with the mind of the government structure that we've been given. I would only know how to change it, but I guess it could use some changing. But it's not going to happen. I'm just happy to do what I'm doing and just trying to reach, people, and really, about empowerment, who are we? What are we truly made of? And I know your work is so fascinating, and I'm so glad to be learning more about you. Just your knowledge of the extraterrestrial component. Where do you see the future? Is it okay if I ask questions to him? I'm so sorry, Stephen.
Definitely.
Oh,
this is a discussion more than anything. Yeah.
I can't wait to see what kind of answers I come up with.
Oh yeah, just for the future when it comes. Well, I don't know. I know the future is flexible, but as far as just disclosure and just lifting that veil and humans getting more acquainted with the galactic or extraterrestrials, any sort of thoughts about what we're stepping into when it comes to the fact that there's been ET government treaties? We have seen enough evidence of all sorts of things, and witnesses and people who have hybrid babies, and I don't know, any thoughts about how this is all unfolding or where we are currently with just more My
speculation on that, Laura, is that, my God, we've been done over, hoodwinked, the human race. And so, they're going to have to very psychologically, carefully, they've been coming out with, the To the Stars thing and the Nimitz incident and stuff like that, bringing it out into the media. But that's, as we both know, that's a controlled narrative that they're attempting to push out there when they're talking about USOs, unidentified submerged objects coming out of the ocean with Nimitz back in 2004. But my very small and insignificant testimony compared to some of the other testimonies that were revealed back in 2001 was that I was receiving secret classified messages from U.S. Navy ships reporting, reddish-orange glowing elliptical objects about 70 feet in diameter off port bows shooting up going over 7,000 miles per hour. This is back in 1969, at the time we were going to the moon. And, I thought, wow, I looked in the San Francisco Chronicles afterward, to see if there was anything out there. Then I find out, decades later that there's thousands and thousands of reports of the Russian Navy and civilian merchant ships, and I found databases online where it has all of these USO, underwater submerged object. Basically, they can go through mountains, they can go into space, they can go deep under our oceans, and we know that. There's hundreds of deep underground military bases, which, started back in 1946 when they brought Xavier Dorsch, which was the underground mastermind for Hitler, which they brought under paperclip, and they started building out in New Mexico, and they expanded out. And we know they also have deep underwater military bases as well.
Phil Schneider was working on those, and he was murdered.
Yeah, Emery Smith talked about being in one of those deep underwater bases where they. There's thousands of flying saucers coming in and out of our oceans. Of course, you won't hear much about that in the news, but it's very much a reality. I'm sorry, Laura. What was the question again?
I don't know. Gosh, it's just
Where do you see the future going?
It was a really long-winded kind of question that I don't know if I really refined it well enough to. But I mean, we have obviously benevolent and malevolent. I guess in this shift we would see. I don't know. What are your thoughts though? Because some people say there's no negative.
Yes.
There's no dark agendas. There's no, even really renowned people are saying there's no negative ETs. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? You have the Vatican coming out, ET's our brother, and they're all, good, and you have some evangelicals saying, they're all demons, from hell, take us away.
I would say it was a mixed bag, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
But my thoughts are, most of them advanced to a certain point. They they didn't destroy themselves. They're most likely benevolent, but that doesn't, according to multiple witnesses, Tompkins, Good, and so many others, that in fact even Werner von Braun's mentor, Professor Hermann Oberst, saying we had help from people from other worlds, with the draconian race. I think it's a mix, and but I think what's reassuring to me is that the Nordic races that are extraterrestrial races that have evolved far longer and are more in alignment with spiritual principles, you could say, their technology is far superior to those of the malevolent races. So I think what the big challenge at hand is the psychological transition, of which, thank you for all that you're doing, and Stephen, to, each of us in our own way. I feel like it's my patriotic duty. I never made one penny at any of this. So I just feel like, I gave a sworn oath to protect the Constitution against militaries, foreign and domestic. And from all indications, it looks like we have an infiltration of a domestic enemy. Yeah. And that they have been manipulating our perceptions to hide their illegal, according to Admiral Thomas Wilson, their illegal operations. So I think what the task at hand is doing exactly what we're doing talk shows, any way we can get information out, just to get a person to start to think. There's this one gay liberal guy, what was it, Brandon, that started the walk away movement, and it all started because a family member, it wouldn't have been like a pro-Trumper, he would have ignored it, but a family member challenged him and said, the CNN's manipulating, and he said, I'm going to take that challenge, I'm going to prove you wrong, and so he went into it and said, oh my God, you're right, they are manipulating the information. And so it's that once that dam starts to crack open and they start to see part of the perception matrix crumbling, and then they start saying, oh my God, there's one connection after another connection, and oh, let me look into this and look into a little bit of history behind that, and what's behind that. And of course, it's getting more and more difficult to do that because of the algorithms that are being manipulated as whistleblowers, such as Zachary Zoras, that's right to pronounce his name, blocking certain websites. Now they have new rules, YouTube and Facebook, that they're going to start, taking out channels and things that have, conspiracy hate, and are trying to tie together, QAnon with dangerous conspiracy that lead people to commit violence and things. What they're trying to do is use that for justification in order to sanitize any type of awakening, revealing information, and they're desperately trying to do it. When you think about it, they were all created. The CIA initially, funded all these operations.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, and it's to me, when I really think of the oneness thing. I mean, obviously, it's diversity and harmony would be a oneness that works, but as we step out of duality, I feel like this mixed bag sort of evens out. Like, anything predatory, anything parasitic has a host to feed on. And as we increase our vibration, self-awareness, and it loses its ability, then it might have an opportunity to transmute and turn to the light. And that these races are healing if they're malevolent, perhaps, if they're willing. Some might just end up space dust. And then the ones that are more advanced are reflective of our higher self, our higher abilities, and our true galactic heritage. And, because obviously people have different affinities to different, races. That's
a good way of putting it.
I don't know. When you were talking, actually, I was like, it was opening up something else where I'm like, oh yeah, I was kind of seeing it. And I've felt that, before, but it's not like, I don't know. I kind of, how thoughts can come and go. It's like, maybe that's a keeper. I don't know. But yeah, I just feel like
those are the little clicks of inspiration with source. I think that you're tapping into for a few seconds there. You tapped in for a second and you had that little inspiration. Oh yeah, and it tied to. I have those oh yeah moments all the time. That's what happens. How I come up with a lot of the theories I come up with. It's just like you. You had said in that interview, you come up with a theory and then you try to find the information that could back it up. You listen to what's out there, see what resonates with you, and then go, okay, so that there, well, doesn't that kind of connect with this there? And then you find that connection. That's why they were targeting my show so much, because as you guys know, visuals are everything. And I was for the show I did with Dan, the first interview I did, it starts off with a clip from the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. talking about how they control humanity, ritualization and getting them to take each other out and stuff like that. And I would put these into the shows so I could sit there and I can tell you something, but you can just go, well, yeah, blah, blah. But if I pop in a clip from Captain America movie that's explaining perfectly about Project Paperclip, and what happened there, and how, Hydra is essentially the Nazis, and that's the infiltration, there's the Marvel parallel, so...
Yeah, it's so interesting. The media, you have the Office of Naval Intelligence with their fingers, and with Admiral Leslie Stevens, who was the contemporary of Admiral Rick Oboto, which was working with Tompkins and the Navy spies that were trying to figure out the reptilian spacecraft and everything. Naval Air Station San Diego, which my dad happened to be working at the same time. I sent Dr. Sal the book that had all the people that were working there back then. But what happened was he was Leslie Stevens Jr., his son, who was also in Office of Naval Intelligence, and he was the one that started the Outer Limits series, which I used to love back in the day, and then Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek, and then you have Battlestar Galactica, and you have all these different. Notice it was Admiral James T. Kirk, with Navy. You have all these seeding going out, and then at the same time, you've got all this misinformation coming out, like the flat earth theory and stuff, and seeing how easily people can be fooled and stuff. And so what I find is important is to look at, for the solid foundational base of your information, is look at all the hundreds of witness testimonies, what they're all saying. And, you know, people who are generals, admirals, astronauts even, you know, and then you have authenticated, leaked, classified documents. And if you put those together with the testimonies and use that sort of as a baseline in order to build off your reassembling the reality that has been hidden from us, it's a good starting point.
Oh, wow.
You were speaking about admirals and their testimonies and such. Admiral Byrd is a man who I find extremely fascinating, and you guys, I'm sure, have heard about his alleged diary entry about how he was taken into how they flew in through to a hole in the North Pole, or I'm paraphrasing the story here a bit, but he was supposed to be with Operation High Jump, but then somebody had said something to effect of no, he was actually in the North Pole. So he had made a remark that our next war would be, he said our next war would be with somebody who could travel from pole to pole in the blink of an eye. Now, I was thinking, okay, well, what if that meant he was in the North Pole, he went into that hole and shot out the bottom of the Earth. When they took him out, they shot him out in Antarctica. And he
I haven't seen anything that related. I think when he was saying, then the Peruvian newspaper did an article, and they interviewed him before they shut him up. You know, going back. You know, he's a 33rd degree Freemason, keeps the secrets well. He basically was implying that these spacecraft could go from pole to pole, and you know, was that that's how they were able to intimidate the Truman administration, as they flew over the Washington in 1952, and you know, Nazi Germany knew that Truman was completely afraid of the Soviets and everything like that, and so that's how they were able to bring General Reinhard Gehlen, head of Nazi intelligence, with thousands of spies into the CIA. So yeah, they utilized all that. They basically had, Nazi Germany they were 20 years ahead of us. They got anti-gravity in 1934, where we didn't develop it until October of 1954.
That's where I wanted to go next, so please continue. 1934 anti-gravity.
Yeah, well, they had a 20-year lead, so they had you know, the Nazis always believed in technological superiority, you know, quality over quantity. And we had the quantity. We had the industrial might of the United States. We can make 10 planes and tanks to every one of what Nazi Germany could do. So what they were able to do with their advanced technology, with a period they had help, was, you know, they defeated Operation High Jump, and then they were basically threatening, you know, over the flyovers in 1952. You know, before that, Secretary of the Navy James Forrestal, you know, they suicided him, threw him out the window when I was like 1 month old in 1949. You know, because he wanted the public, just like Kennedy did, who had a background office in naval intelligence, who was read into all this stuff. And he knew what was going on. That's why the
CIA was in on it.
Had to take him out.
The CIA is essentially, I was watching, I think it was Dr. Michael Salla actually who was saying it. I was watching a video of his the other day. And the CIA, they get their money from anywhere they want, essentially. They can go to HUD and say, hey, we're taking $50 billion. See ya. You explain it to the taxpayers. And that's where you get your Rumsfeld on there going, yeah, there's $3 trillion missing and we can't seem to track it.
Oh, yeah, when I was in Vietnam, they were loading up the planes with all the drugs, you know. So, yeah, I mean, they have all sorts of sources of unaccountable revenue. Money is not an object for them.
And back engineering things, you know, from these ships, these downcraft and such.
And what's sad is it's so compartmentalized, like Bob Lazar said, my God, if they can open source this, so everybody, all the great scientist minds in the country could be working on it. Instead, one person doesn't know what the other person's doing because they're so afraid of leaks that they compartmentalize it so much
One
that...
company's building a seat, another company's putting a special window together.
Exactly.
How they mastermind this sort of thing with the compartmentalization is pretty mind-blowing. The group that was connected to the Mars recruitment, the Aviary, was like a mixed bag of disinfo agents and also ones that I think the Tavistock Institute, the New Age movements, the Monroe Institute, this sort of all these movements that have been launched that actually like really target well-intentioned people. The compartmentalization, you got the ones that are sort of behind the strategy from the dark side, and then you have the well-intentioned people that are being convinced that they're doing something good for the human race, and then
right, they're playing them right.
Yeah, well, like your great-grandfather, he thought he was helping. He didn't realize that the military-industrial complex would be born out of between what Roosevelt did and leading up through Truman and to your great-grandfather there. How could he possibly know? He was an army man from way back. They had honor, he was, I'm fighting for my country, my government. They believe, I can trust my government. There's no reason I shouldn't be thinking conspiracies, because you're called a nut and you're turned into James Forrestal, so...
That's why he tried to warn the American people, and that's only you people listening out there. He said only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry could protect our future liberties and freedom. And
why did he stop talking?
The message.
Because JFK happened. Nobody's talking after that. If they can kill a president, they can kill me. They can kill you.
And the dangers of secrecy and secret societies and a monolithic conspiracy, and Kennedy revealed all that stuff.
Yeah, and not just kill. They can make your life freaking miserable.
Exactly.
They can focus a lot of dark rituals also on making your life a living. It was so helpful when I went to that Clairvoyant Institute because they were able to see things. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on. There's some sort of attention on me. It feels like weaponry, and nobody was talking about this stuff. And they actually learned a lot. They're like, oh my gosh, you've got all these weapons on you. And I'm like, because I thought, you're just whacked, Laura. Something's seriously wrong, and you can't...
We need something like that up here for people. Because there are people like me dealing with this too, but we don't have anyone to explain to us what's really going on.
Well, it's so good that, on top of all the just information out there, the amount of people that go under hypnoregression, talking about their abduction experiences, and people still turn a blind eye to that. It's so important to be able to talk about this stuff and to give people support without them being branded as crazy. And that's all, finally, the tide is turning. What do you think of, I hope I'm not shifting gears, though. I don't want to do that.
No,
but
that's okay.
Yeah, just like this climate change thing. I just see my well-intentioned friends, and I know, it's good to believe in something good to the planet, but just the manipulation of certain movements. And it's like, yes, there's climate change, but are we really talking about the weaponry, the directed energy weapons, the chemicals?
Your HARP and it's definitely part of it. There's been videos, more than ample videos. There was one guy that I think it's since been taken down, I believe, but this guy was there. I can't remember exactly what state. I'm thinking it was California during those fires, and none of the trees, the leaves, the grass, none of that stuff was burnt. It was just the houses and the cars were melted, and people's bodies. This guy was walking down a street, and there were some cars where people didn't get out, and there were skeletons in these cars, and that would have to be a directed energy weapon, or else the trees themselves would have at least been thoroughly charred.
There's a lot of inconsistencies with that. I was looking at the Sacramento Bee, and they had a time-lapse photography of showing, the campfire and the Paradise Fire, where right before the smoke started happening, there was these flashes of blue light.
That's
boom,
right,
boom,
I saw
boom,
that.
boom, 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 boom.
Yes.
And then, half hour later, you start seeing all the smoke pouring out, Yeah, they're manipulating the public with good intentioned people that want to protect the planet and protect nature
That's the
and
sick joke. That's the
using
sick
that
joke.
in order to work their agenda.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of referenced the Hunger Games, because I mean, the situations they put the people in, they could do anything, create lightning storms and create fires.
Exactly, that dome. Inside of that dome, that they can televise that crap on there. It was like, yeah, they could, and the districts. That's what's getting me. Somebody had predicted, actually, it may have been Sean Morton, but they had predicted that something like the world was going to be split up into like 12 districts. I think I may be wrong on that, but.
No, they have all kinds of devious plans that are going to fall apart because there is this global awakening happening, and it's happening exponentially. And thanks to the help of the White Hats, we may just see. Today is the December 8th. Tomorrow is December 9th when the Inspector General report is coming out, much anticipated, and so we'll see what that brings.
That's going to be major. So I totally feel all these timelines are collapsing, and weaponizing the elements, weaponizing Earth, weaponizing humans. I like to think, to get out of duality, we can look at the weapons like a tool for our awakening, instead of being a victim to it, instead of it having the power that it appears to have, that we allow it to remind us of the work that needs to be done to fully come together. And people have to understand that each one of us has a purpose. The way we carry ourselves, the way we treat one another, it comes down to the basics of simple integrity and kindness and love and respect amongst each other. Like you were talking about, the love matrix is going to collapse this darker one. And people are still very lost in that negative ego construct that absolutely feeds a timeline that is no good for us. And the mistreatment that I see in just comments, and a lot of them are trolls, but and this is the thing, these movements also breed more division because people are fighting over, oh, that's all fake, oh no, that's real, oh, I can't believe you don't stand for that. The political crisis of belief systems amongst each other are creating like so much conflict between people. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. That is so key, what you're bringing up, because right now the media is going off on this whole thing. They started with, in fact, I talked about this in the Above Majestic movie, about how the CIA, after people were questioning about the JFK assassination, the CIA put out this dispatch saying, label anybody that questions this as a conspiracy theorist. This is back in 1967. And they were even lying to their own CIA agents because they were saying, these theories are that the R.B. Oswald was trained by the intelligence agency. It was all false, but actually from CIA Director John McCone released a thing that did clarify that he was trained under the Office of Naval Intelligence by the CIA. So what they're doing now, today, still using that same old term, conspiracy theorists, what they're doing is they're trying to link that and associate it with dangerous, that's undermining the structure of our society.
Paranoid, schizophrenic, violent, dangerous people.
I just want to say this show is not based on any kind of theory. We're talking about conspiracy facts here. Right. And that's your name of your show, isn't it? Conspiracy Fact or Theory?
My main one is Conspiracy Fact or Theory, and I was going to be doing live shows. I actually had one booked with Stanton Friedman and Garrett Wang, who played Ensign Harry Kim on Star Trek Voyager. He was going to be my partner on the show. I'll edit that video in. It's him going, "Hi, I'm Garrett Wang. I can't wait to work with Steve in Fact or Theory Live." It's kind of like an open-ended contract, so that's where I'm getting my stuff from, is that they wanted to shut me down because of that, because I had famous people interested in me. They sent police to my house. They brought out a laptop, showed me my Twitter page, showed me what I was saying that they didn't like, and I said, well, what about David Icke or Alex Jones? And they're like, well, they sound nuts. You sound reasonable. I only had like 1,000 people following me, but people like What's his name from Dances with Wolves? Kevin Costner.
Well, it's
All kinds
interesting
of
that Alex Jones got called out by Q as being a Mossad agent.
Mossad. Yeah, Alex Jones follows me too. I'm sure he got a lot of his stories from me even.
And when it makes sense that you would want to control a main conspiracy theory-oriented
And the
media
best way to do
outlet,
that,
when it makes sense.
controlled opposition, definitely. Well, it's what they do in everything, in business, in politics, and everything. You need controlled opposition, or else you can't be successful with your objectives.
Yeah. The whole thing is, this division that Laura brought up, and divide us. As long as we keep divided and at each other's throats, what happens is we don't see the man behind the curtain that's manipulating, the perceptions that's creating this division. And they're really trying to lump in everything that they like the shooting incidences. Went up on 8chan. Now they're even trying to say, we posted on Twitter beforehand. We've got to control Twitter. We got to control 8chan.
Right. Yeah.
We've got to and kind of lump in together, flat Earth theory with these radical, violent people, and throw QAnon in there, and people with bringing up conspiracy theories. We've got to. All this is like hate speech. It's undermining our society, but they don't realize that. Unless people look outside of what they've been indoctrinated in since birth from their school education system and their media that they watch in the evening. I mean, I couldn't imagine. When you start researching this, it's like one oh my God after another.
Exactly.
And because it's so far removed from how we've been indoctrinated.
Yeah.
And so they're really scared. They're really, really scared of conspiracy theories and want to suppress them as much as they can.
I wish people would just... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, if we could just look at everything without attachments from a place of observation and neutrality, instead of trying to defend our beliefs, how people defend their beliefs or that indoctrination that they have to stand by.
That they fight for.
That they fight for, totally, and see the toxicity that it actually creates. It's not even about what people are fighting for anymore. It's about the fact that it's caused us to fight each other. Yeah. And that is the agenda. It's not even
Good
really...
point.
Because we're... sport.
It seems people need to hang on to some sense of identity, and we've been taught to fear our true authenticity and uniqueness and ability. Because the thing is, when we're authentic, truth has a resonance and a frequency. If we're in an artificial sort of belief or we're wearing a mask and we're not really being true to ourselves, it's very easy to just give our power away or to externalize everything or to create an attachment that's unhealthy and without even realizing it. So, and these initiations from these outer planets, give us the ability to shed those layers of ego and be blasted with important downloads that help to, give us a frequency of authenticity and truth, which helps us to navigate information, disinformation, deception, truth. But yeah, it's really hard for people to do that work. But fortunately, people create life events for themselves that sometimes just really, hit them over the head, and help them to see the world from a different perspective. And that's what I've learned a lot as an astrologer is people have a timing to when they are ready to be blasted open, and sometimes it takes a personal crisis to give them the space to step back and rethink everything. It's until it's home, people don't care.
Good point, Laura. Is an advantage that we have over the dark side, you could say, is that truth has this unusual ability to resonate in people when they hear it. It's something like, we're finding out more and more that we're basically this multi-dimensional resonance information processing. Our brains actually tap into something much greater that we're all connected into. And that, just as people can douse information and things like that, all the information in the entire universe is there, as Tesla knew. That when people speak truth, there is this resonance that goes on that, it's just like when, some people are pretty good liars, but not all the time.
Yeah, they always slip at some point. Maybe years down the road, they get sloppy and
Oh yeah, is also interesting though, because there's the monarch programming and alters. Somebody can sound totally sincere, and next thing you know, they're being switched into a different personality that has a completely different mindset.
I'm glad you brought that up. We have a dentist office here, Monarch Dentistry, and a lot of people don't realize that that was something to do with the mind control. The Monarch, Project Monarch, was it? And what better way to do that than through dental implants, right? You put a filling in there, and it's a microphone. You can hear everything they're talking about. Program your stuff into their mind, change the frequencies, whatever you got to do. Project Monarch, I believe, was part of it. I have a friend, an old friend named Justina, who went through the group. She was her own brother. He's a famous architect guy. I bet you if I said his name and you just did a quick research, you'd find him. But in part of the sex trade, the child sex trade, YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And this guy sent her down there. He's a Freemason as well, but he's obviously with the bad hats, because he essentially gave his beautiful sister up to, sold his soul for the devil to become this famous architect. And her father finally got her out of it. They had him drugged up. He had no idea he thought she went to stay with a friend for the summer. Meanwhile, she was being brainwashed and used as a sex slave the entire time.
This is a huge issue right now. It's unbelievable, the numbers. It's really disturbing.
It is.
Child. Oh man. Hundreds of thousands of people missing. You have to wonder what's going on some of these deep underground military bases. Off planet as well. As Laura almost got shipped off to Mars. Mm-hmm. How did they approach you on that one, Laura?
Oh, it was through a partner who they had brought into their group, the Aviary and the Aquarium, which are sort of UFO think tanks. They have like the weird desk, and they supposedly look at people's stories about abductions to just trying to analyze the UFO alien thing. Folks like Ron Pandolfi, John Alexander, Hal Puthoff, Jack Sarfati, and one of the ones that was really linked to the MJ-12 documents, Bruce Maccabee, I don't know. Yeah, he was in it too. So anyway, just because I know some of those names have been in different places doing different things, and so they all kind of gathered, and I think that's where a lot of compartmentalism has happened, because when they brought my partner in, not my current partner, before I met him, they were kind of grooming him and prepping him for this role that was all around going to Mars in 2012. Right, that critical date, 2012. And he was having abduction experiences, and I guess he was getting like downloads from what he called the patrons about doing this mission to Mars. But then they pulled him in, and so the way I was approached, I had basically just... I was frustrated. I was being heavily targeted, and I just sort of said, okay, well, I can't fight this. I just got to see where it's going to take me and just go with what that energy is wanting me to do so I can face it, or else I'm not going to be able to make it stop. I have to just, and so I ended up moving back to the Washington, D.C. area, living in my mom's basement, raising my twin boys by myself. And I was pretty reclusive, and I'm going to try and make this short. It's one of those days. It's like, I don't know, my mental body's a little. So anyway, I just decided that I didn't want to be too reclusive. I ended up going to a gathering in Charlottesville. It was just sort of a camping thing with some music. And this man approached me. He kind of sat down next to me. And I just felt like this instant affinity. I'm like, holy wow, and we ended up talking, and we ended up dating, and he was going to these meetings in D.C. with this group, and he kept talking about going to Mars, but you can't tell anybody, and blah, 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 blah. And but we had formed a relationship, and what I found out later is that they actually use looking glass technology. That's how I found out about looking glass. This was back in 2006, and located us in a past life, and that we were a very strong kind of hierogamic union or sacred union couple, and they wanted to use that. And so they pulled him into the program. And what I was getting was that he wasn't having legit experiences. These were military operations, and that he was having artificial telepathy. And so when he was trying to get me to go to Mars, every time I would resist, the idea would be dropped until I moved in with him and we got married. And then it would amp up again. And I said, I'm not going. My mission's here on Earth. We're going to go to the stars, but I'm not going to go in like right here, right now in this particular window, and to kind of wake up. And what I started to notice was that he would, take phone calls and disappear for days and not remember where he was. And so that really, put me in a few rabbit holes for months. And I figured out the names of the people, what they were connected with, the sort of cover stories, and then some of the more nefarious activities that had to do with gang stalking, mind control, MyLabs, artificial telepathy. And there's actually a website about the aviary that says all these things, but it didn't come out until 2010. So I only have my intuition to rely on. And they said that, if you don't go, we're going to take you anyway. And then it got to be not just me dating somebody that was going to go to Mars and I didn't have to go. He basically admitted that they tracked me and that he was sent on a mission to bring me in. But, we still really loved each other, and it was really, hard because, I ordered rare earth magnets trying to, like, deactivate whatever implants he had. Right. And I was doing all this research, like, come back to me, don't let them go. And I had
a script for that. I'm telling you, that would.
Well, I do have a book that'll come out. Nice. It's all delayed because I have to work, and I don't know how people create so much space to be able to. But anyway, I had a really profound dream where basically I made a choice, and I was being taken up in a ship in chains, and I made the choice to stay, and then all these planetary alignments happened, and it was like the right thing to do. But they ended up, I don't know what happened to him. It was really intense. So,
oh my God, yeah, your higher aspect was protecting you. I remember this. Dr. Michael Salla came up with this. It was like I think it was in England. The Parliament ministers, they had this program where it was kind of strange because they were talking about how do you take down a dictator that's running a kind of a slave operation on Mars if it's gotten out of hand. Why they would even do that. And then you have the Space Act of 2015, I think Obama did, where it basically gets the corporations off the hook for human rights abuse, for off-planet mining. So all these kind of indications that you made the right choice.
Yeah, and the things they presented it to me like, oh, we'll give you this position, this, like they were really pumping it up and making it just sound like this is the greatest thing. And the friend that was, connected to me that he met through me after, him and I got together, he had convinced her that this was a good idea. And she is a witness testimony in the first article I put out. And I was like, no. No. This is not what they're saying. This is, and I was fighting it, and I was getting really pissed. And there was a lot of attack. I went to the ER a few times. And he's like, oh, there's webcams everywhere. Every once in a while, like I could tell that he had alters. He would shut off all the electronics, take the battery out of our cell phones, shut off all the computers, TVs, anything electronic, and he would leak things to me, and then he would deny that he ever said it. Right. And then his parents were involved. He had a cover like occupation, and it was really just a front. And his parents ended up getting killed, and there would be bodies in the trunk. It was just, I was like, because the aviary all has code names like owl, pelican, penguin, and after a while I'm like, am I in a Batman movie? This is just insane.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. And it's just like literally
they used Project Looking Glass to kill Batman.
Well, it's kind of interesting. They're probably using Looking Glass to see what kind of impact that Laura would have on the future if she stayed here on Earth. And we got to get this woman off this planet and off to Mars so that she doesn't impact the collective mind.
Mm-hmm. I believe that there are some people that are essential to the timeline and they cannot be killed. And then there's others, like Laura says, that they just ruin. They're like, okay, I can't kill you, but I can ruin you, and I can make it so nobody believes anything you say.
And they tried, and that's been the tough part of the journey for sure. But it's just like, you know what? Even if you did kill me, I'd just reincarnate and completely take you guys down. So, do whatever. You can't stop me. It's just like I'm wired to not ever give up on this.
Here's a belief I have, and I say this out loud because I truly believe that. Well, I see my camera light goes on. I'll be watching a movie on Netflix, and all of a sudden the camera light comes on, and it's like they're checking in to see what I'm doing or something. And oh man, see, and I just had a brain fart of where I was going with that.
Well, no, it's just the whole target. I mean, they put there was a list of people that they put on my path. And I'm saying this because I know I'm not the only one that has experienced it. I don't want to make it about, but they had plants and particular people that would pose as friends or,
Right.
They tried to make my life a living hell, and they did a really good job. And I haven't actually experienced calm and peace and had a smile on my face since I married my husband. And that was just 2 years ago. Everything from day one has been freaking believable, like to survive it,
You were living a Truman Show.
To either not be destroyed, and I'm still recovering. I'm completely PTSD, but they can't kill certain people because it's easier for them to assassinate or kill people that were once affiliated with their family, with the 13 families, or ones that have oaths, because they can justify that. I don't think, for some reason, because people sometimes don't believe me. They're like, the reason we don't believe you is because you're not dead. So I'm like, well. Like, sorry, well, I'm still here. It's, but no, I feel like it's more they've tried to destroy. I don't know. What about you, Dan? Do you have? I'm sure you've dealt with your brunt, and you were actually okay, Stephen. Sorry, when you had your brain fart, you were talking about how they were checking up on you. But I was just gonna also help you get back on track with that thought, and then I was gonna ask Dan his experience. But yeah, what were you? Was I able to help you get that thought back? How they kind of check up on you?
Not yet, not so much. But I was enjoying what you were saying, and then I want to hear what Dan had to say. That I was like, yeah, okay, Dan, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting, since the White Hats, which is, kind of connected with the Navy and Marine Corps initially, it was a split that happened in the late 40s between the Air Force and the Navy with their two separate extraterrestrial reverse engineering operations. What happened was, the White Hats were supporting us go to Washington in 2001. That, I heard this story more than once that, there's going to be a long line of dead bodies if anything happens to any of the witnesses, or their families. And so apparently, I don't know, just knock on, that, I have not had any threats against me. I know some of the witnesses have had near-death experiences. I know that Carl Wolf, who was talking about the bases on the other side of the moon, which, he was there at the National Press Club saying, and here it is, 30 years ago today, and I hope to hear it on the evening news, which they never did. He was kind of killed in a bicycle accident. The big truck ran him over on a bicycle. I've always
wondered about that. Yeah.
I think we do have a lot of protection from some elements that are going on. I don't know, but I'm alive here and speaking with both of you, and I'm grateful for that.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, I do. I definitely feel protected. I know the weakening effect, though, that some of these targets can have, because they can target people to target others, and if a person's not stable,
that's their preferred method.
Because the greatest weapon that I found is they knew they couldn't mind control me, but if they set me up with a partner and I would fall in love, especially somebody I had an affinity with, I'm going to go anywhere with him. I'll go to Mars because he's my love, and so it was like a heart target, because a lot of my partners, have been targeted, and we had to work a lot of energy to remove a lot of the weaponry that they were putting on them to make my life a living hell. And they were like, I don't know why I'm so out of control and I'm treating you like this, and it's not really my nature. And fortunately my partner now is pretty immune to it, but and I'm not a victim, and I feel it's just a catalyst to just really step into my mission more. And so I kind of thank them. I'm like, well, you've created a monster, and I'm a loudmouth. So anyway.
Yeah, they have a fear of couples that are well balanced and loving each other. They did this research at Stanford where they found that for psychic abilities, you have a man and a man, or a man and you have a woman and a woman. They tried it, but when you have a man and a woman, you have that balance. They found that the ability was amplified 7 times as strong because of that. Ever since in ancient Egypt, with Akhenaten, when there was a balance between the masculine and feminine, and we have, as you talk about many times, Laura, about the imbalance that's going on in this planet. That's where we're ultimately going, is that balance of the male and female. And they know that, if you get together with somebody, they target the mate to create the instability. In fact, that was why Bob Lazar got fired, because his wife was having an affair with their flight instructor. So they were going to fire him anyway.
I think she was put in my path, because I got to tell you, I had just started doing the conspiracy show, and then all of a sudden, this beautiful woman, Ukrainian girl, comes into my life. Her mother went to school with Queen Elizabeth. It's like there's crazy, and I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, are you CIA? Like, what's going on? Because no girl that looks like you is going to want to be with me, especially at this point in my life when I've got this crap going on. And how is it that your brother is a Freemason? Both brothers are a Freemason. Her father was a Freemason. She's involved with this YWAM thing. Her brother's a sex trafficker. I'm like, what? Like, this sounds like a major setup to me, big time. And when you go to your Wi-Fi, on my Wi-Fi, there is a thing. Now, it could be a joke. It says FBI surveillance van. Now, at this woman Justina's house, she had brought up to me, what is this? And she showed me it on hers. It said FBI surveillance van number 79. I'm like, okay, well, what are the chances that 2 people are playing the exact same joke on me and this girl who lives across town? Like, that just seems strange to me. And everything you were saying about what happened with your ex-partner there, that he was, you guys were meant to be together from a past life. Actually, that's where I wanted to go with that. There was I believe they may even have the technology that they can track your past life through your family bloodline, your reincarnation, all of that stuff. What do you guys think about that?
That's the only way I can explain. I mean, because he brought up looking glass technologies and the Orion's cube and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I learned about that technology, and one of the people that were connected to these groups, the Aviary and Aquarium, named, I shouldn't say his name, actually, I don't want to get him in trouble, but he was sort of like being the whistleblower between me and him, telling me about this group and what sort of technologies they had and how they located us in a previous life. And he helped me to understand how this whole targeting thing to go off planet, like what how did they end up putting me together with somebody that I had a natural affinity with, because if they put me with just any agent or any person, I'm not just going to run off with somebody. There's got to be, an affinity. There's got to be
instant click. Yeah.
Like, we know you just can't fall in love with anyone. So
exactly.
Yeah. That it was through these technologies that they were able to locate us, or maybe upon arrival, something about the timeline about him and I coming together. And yes, they might have been able to read past lives. We probably had a past life, regardless of them reading it, that they might have been able to see upon our births. Because Andy talked a lot about how Project Pegasus, were aware of souls before they came in, and they said in 1972, a year before I was born, that him and I were going to work together, and I wasn't even born yet, and they work with similar technology. So I don't know. I know that they can track past lives, but they can also pick up on a lot when you just come in. But I guess if they did that in Project Pegasus, you don't even have to be born yet for them to. I don't know. It's really freaky.
No, it does make sense. It's strange, but it does make sense. You're dealing with quantum theory and such, but yeah, and entanglement and everything,
All this advanced science being used for devious methods, it's this has to be transformed. We can't go on like this. This a whole thing, and we're doing what we can. We do a talk show once in a while. Whatever we do, I thank God, the Above Majestic got out there, kind of showing the dark side, the cosmic secret, showing the light side. But together, they're kind of like the male female that kind of gives a full picture.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I keep thinking we're all going to gather at a cosmic campfire and look back and be like, that was insane. What the heck?
Exactly.
I have a hard time believing I chose to be born at this time. I tell you.
Well, thank God you were. Jeez.
Well, thank you. See, that's why I love you guys. You're so personable. Dan, there was one time I was having a problem with my microphone, and I called Dan just for 30-second type thing. We wound up talking for an hour. He's like, hey, how's it going? It's just, that's what I love about that.
I'm not unapproachable at all.
Oh, same. Oh my gosh. I love this. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, we're all a unified front and unity consciousness, and we're all, working a lot of energy. We all have purpose. And I don't believe in the hierarchy or chosen one. I think love and wisdom is the chosen one, and we have to all embrace the fact that we can step in alignment with it and move mountains and, really take good care of each other and rehabilitate from all the traumas of this history we've lived.
Just talking to you guys, the tinnitus has dropped drastically. One ear has stopped ringing completely, and the headache is starting to subside.
Oh, love heals everything.
Yep.
That's good to hear. Yes.
Okay, well, you know what? It's been almost 2 hours. For me, that actually went by pretty quickly, except that I had to stare at the clock half the time.
This has been so enjoyable.
Is there anything else you guys want to get into? Laura, do you have anything coming up?
You mean as far as trips or?
Trips and shows, anything you want to talk about.
Well, I mean, my website's cosmicgaia.org, and I will be putting a lot of info on where I'll be going. I know Manchester, England in June, Awakening 2020, and then Contact in the Desert, and New Living Expo, and a few other things. But yeah, just keeping up. Just check my website. I'll be updating it soon. Yeah, and
Dan, anything you want to?
I'm pretty much a hermit with my wife Rebecca up here. I don't do conferences or anything. Once in a while the New York Post interviewed me last week, and also I'm on on the Travel Channel. The Travel Channel came down to interview me about the Alaska UFO situation. No, I'm pretty much just low key. I just feel I feel behooved to once in a while, get on and do a show and start seeding the collective mind out there that, hey, look, what the world that you've been born into is not showing you everything, and you need to know what you don't know can impact you negatively if you're not aware. So it's important to know your power, know the power of love, and get educated. The webmatrix.net is just my notes. It's an unprofessional site, but it
don't sell yourself short. There's great information there, and you've got it all laid out chronologically, so it's fantastic.
I'm grateful. A lot of it is from Dr. Michael Sell of exopolitics.org. He's been doing, it inspired him, the National Press Club, and ever since that time that he got fired from the university for his interest, he's been just doing amazing research.
I'm supposed to be talking with him in the new year. He's finishing up a new book, I believe he was saying, and then he told me to get in touch with him in January. So if you
I just finished his new book, and I'm planning on doing a show with him discussing that, about the Air Force, how it originally was with the Draco reptilians, and they changed their alliance over to the Nordics, like the Navy. And nice. The poor reptilians are going to be all left all alone. They won't have anybody to support them.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm running low on time here, so you guys have been great. I will let you know when this is going to be edited. I'm going to be popping some stuff in with it as well. So, everybody, this is Laura Eisenhower and Dan Willis and Steve Crawford saying, see you later, keep your chin up, and dream a better dream. Ciao.
Laura, such a pleasure.
Yes, it's amazing to be with you guys. Thank you so much. I look forward to staying connected.
Have a great night, guys.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay. Good night.
Bye-bye.